What's going on, everybody? It's KBR Sports, the best sports podcast in your 24-hour day. I'm your host, Brendan Abbin, welcoming you guys to the podcast. Thanks for everybody that's tuning in, whether it's whatever you're doing on your way to work, on your coming back from work, or even while you're at work, just biding by the time. I always appreciate you guys tuning into the podcast. Definitely means a lot. Hopefully, whatever sports topic I decide to tackle on the day is something that you are looking forward to hearing. The NBA is tipping off. Everything's getting kicked off. We got a whole slew of games going on and everything. We had the Celtics and Sixers yesterday. Celtics taking that one. We had the Warriors and Thunder. Obviously, most people are predicting the Warriors are going to win that game just because of the fact that Russell Westbrook wasn't even playing in that game. But NBA season is back, y'all. NBA season is back. It's exciting. We have the storylines. We have all the different little nitpicking things that go on with the NBA, especially the stars and all the exciting. Think about how different your social media is when the NBA is back on. I feel like every single night you have a social media clip or some highlight or something like that that is going on that you see online when the NBA is on. So the NBA is definitely a vibrant league that has a lot of new blood and everything. That's very excitable and make you look forward to the season and seeing how the season goes. As we get into the full swing of the NBA season, let's think about some things here. I mean, everybody's doing their over-unders, their predictions, and just to let you guys know, this is going to be predominantly an NBA podcast. I'm pretty much just going to talk all NBA for the most part. But like I was saying, I mean, everybody's doing their over-unders, their predictions and everything. Some things are the same as they've been for the past few years. Everyone practically picks the Warriors to win the championship, since you have to work to come up with more reasons as to why they won't win the championship as opposed to why they will. So let me give you an example of that. If you're somebody that's trying to come up with reasons as to why the Warriors won't win the championship, you're sitting there like, well, if they're not healthy, or if they're not as driven, if they don't have the heart and all this stuff. But what if they do, though? Like, what if they are healthy? What if they just play like they're supposed to play? They're better than every other team, right? So then the Warriors are the best team to most likely win the championship. So we do this thing where we try to come up with some creative avenue as to why the Warriors won't win the championship or why someone else will win the championship. I mean, it is literally what everybody does. Everyone is coming up with their teams, like the Celtics, the Rockets, and whoever else that they think can challenge the Warriors just to make the NBA season interesting. And then aside from that, people are back to trying to cyberbully Kevin Durant off the Warriors and have made him the new contestant for where will he go next. And one thing, however, that is a little different than it has been in the past few years are the award races. I mean, think about it. But I mean, mainly most of the NBA season for the past few years has been predictable. LeBron's going to win the Eastern Conference. The Warriors are going to win the West. They're going to come out the West. They're going to represent the West. And that's why we had the whole trilogy going on with the Cavs and Warriors for the past 4 years. So now we're in a situation, well, not even beyond the trilogy, but now we're in a situation where we're seeing that the NBA season is a little bit less predictable than it was last go around. Now we don't know who's coming out of the East. We don't know who's going to be the Warriors' main foe of competition, since a lot of people surmise that the Rockets got worse. And a lot of people are saying the Celtics are the Warriors' main point of competition. But a lot of different storylines and things are going on now. But, you know, one thing that, funny enough, that was a little different than it has been in the past few years, especially that was really predictable, is the MVP award. I mean, think about it. In most years, we can normally foresee we think will win the MVP. Last year it was obvious. James Harden had to win it after it seemingly alluded to like his grasp for 2 out of the last 4 years. I mean, the first year when Steph won his MVP, a lot of people felt like James should have won it when they were the second seed. Dwight Howard had missed time, and James Harden had put up crazy numbers even in that year. A lot of people felt like James Harden should have won it that year. And then the next year was the year that Russell Westbrook won it, when James Harden had his team right there again, had put up great numbers. His team was second overall seed, and yet still falling short just because, I mean, Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double. So Russ had every fan and media member behind him after the departure of Kevin Durant that year, and him doing something that had only been done once in NBA history before him. I mean, it was just crazy. So they felt like they had to give it to him because he did something historical. Well, this year, it isn't as obvious. I mean, think about it. It's an open field. But why? Well, that's because the storylines don't fit what our expectations are for many players on their different teams. So let's take Giannis Antetokounmpo, for example, right? If you had to bet, a lot of people will probably say Giannis should be the guy to win the MVP. But because Giannis averages the numbers and everything like that, Giannis puts up statistics, he is as valuable to his team in terms of winning as any other player is. But from what we've seen over the past few years, when Giannis, even though Giannis has put up these statistics and has done a lot of production and stuff in terms of his own individual overall counting stats, we see it hasn't exactly resulted in Milwaukee being that much better, despite him putting up all those crazy numbers, those crazy statistics, filling up the box score and everything like that. Don't get me wrong, those stats play a huge role, but what these NBA execs and all these players and media and everything like that they want to see that when we're voting on these different awards, that we're taking into account that guys got to be winning too. Their teams have to be winning at the same time. So you don't just get off by just having a whole crap ton of wins and everything like that, and then you're just balling, you don't get a crap ton of stats and everything, but then your team doesn't have the wins. I mean, think about it. The Bucks were the 7th seed last year. All right, so the Bucks were the 7th seed, and that's with Giannis having played a great season. I mean, the dude was crazy last year. He averaged 26.9 points. He averaged 10 rebounds, 4.8 assists, and he shot 52.9% from the field and 30% from three-point range. So Giannis played really well last year. But if the Bucks were the 2nd seed last year, it might be tough to make the argument that Giannis wouldn't have won the MVP over James Harden, right? I mean, at that point, it seemed like James Harden was just due for an MVP because the league had robbed him so many years. It felt like if he didn't get the MVP this past season, especially with how well the Rockets played and them being the number 1 overall seed, that people just had something against them. So now, when we're looking at Giannis, he's a guy where, yeah, you should be that guy. You're next up because we've given the MVP to every single guy that was supposed to get it. Russ has gotten his. LeBron's gotten his once. Steph has gotten his. Kevin Durant's gotten his. The people on the Warriors essentially are disqualified from the MVP race just because they cancel each other out, Steph and KD. Now, James Harden's gotten his, and everybody that was supposed to get theirs has gotten theirs. But when we look at the MVP award and how we're judging it, the MVP award goes by like either one of two or three things really. Wins, how many wins your team has accrued throughout the season, your individual stats and the impact you have on your team winning, and then if you're doing something historical. Steph Curry won his 2 MVPs. More importantly, his unanimous MVP. For one, the Warriors were 73-9. 2, Steph Curry had one of the most offensively efficient years in NBA history. So, and he was the focal point of probably one of the best teams in all NBA history that just didn't finish the job by winning a championship. So, when we're viewing which guy should be up next to win the MVP, this year has been really tough to gauge it out because every guy that you think, because all the guys that have already gotten theirs that we would normally put up to get theirs have already gotten it. That's why you see a lot of people now voting LeBron to win the MVP now, because they're like, well, we gave it to everybody that's supposed to win one, but the other guys that are supposed to be up next, we don't think their teams are going to do well enough that it would justify giving them the MVP. People don't think Giannis is going to lead the Bucks to a number 1 overall seed, a number 2, number 3. They don't think that he's going to do that for the Bucks and then put up amazing numbers at the same time. They might think he's going to put up the amazing numbers, but they think he's going to be right in the middle of the Eastern Conference. And that's why people aren't voting on Giannis to be the guy to win the MVP this year. That's why he's like 5th in voting and prediction voting to win the MVP. Then we look at the Western Conference, another guy who's kind of in the same boat, Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis literally has a case to be made that he's the best player in the league right now. But the problem with Anthony Davis is he's in the same boat as Giannis. Team is always hovering around the middle seeds or the lower seeds, has yet to get a 4, a 3, a 2, a 1 seed. And no matter the statistics you put up, unless you're doing something historical like averaging a triple-double, having an amazing defensive year along with an amazing offensive year, they won't give you the MVP. Anthony Davis, if Anthony Davis was to come out and just kind of tear up the league like he was doing when DeMarcus Cousins went out, yeah, he would get put into the top of the MVP voting category. But if he's doing that, but LeBron's putting up normal LeBron numbers and the Lakers are the second seed, most likely LeBron's going to get it, which is why a lot of people are voting on LeBron to win the MVP, because LeBron's in a situation this go around where people think that he has a better team. They think that his expectations are lower. He's playing in a tougher conference now, and they think he's going to put up crazy numbers playing on the Lakers. And since his expectations are so low, if LeBron breaks those expectations and goes beyond them, then that just sets up the narrative. The MVP award is all about narrative, guys. If you haven't realized that at this point, then you've been lost for a good while. Think about it. I listed some narratives beforehand, but it's all about the narrative of what the storyline is for your team and what's going on. If LeBron has the narrative that's pushing for him all throughout the year, even though these are media people writing these stories and everything like that, they're not supposed to be influenced by those stories and everything else by other people. They hear it all. They pay attention to it. They take it in. You can't deny that. LeBron got a late season push last year for the MVP when you can make the case a couple of guys deserved it over him. Granted, LeBron, we knew LeBron what his focal point was for that Cavs team. Obviously, if you take LeBron off of that team, they were nothing without LeBron. That you can make that case for a lot of different players in the league. But there were players that were playing better on both ends of the floor than well, maybe not offensively, but you can make the case that they were playing better all around and had their teams performing at a higher level all around. But LeBron was higher in MVP voting because he just put up the monster statistics, and the narrative fit him because everybody was like, this Cavs roster is a joke and they're only in it because of LeBron. So narratives are what drives these awards. It's all about the narratives. It's all about how people are going to make a perspective of things. And I think a lot of people are undermining a guy like a Joel Embiid and undervaluing how he could make a run in this NBA MVP race, because Joel Embiid is the best player in the 76ers. I mean, without a doubt. And you see that he's trying to even go for the Defensive Player of the Year award. But with him, it's more of a question of injuries and health and everything like that. But if you can get a 100% Joel Embiid all year, in shape, in conditioning, man, the dude is nasty. And he can perform at a high level next to Ben Simmons. And you even saw last year, those guys were a top 3 seed. So when you're seeing how the missing component for Giannis might be the fact that he doesn't get the wins, you could see a team like a Philly or something like that getting those wins. Now, if you were to ask me my prediction for who will win the MVP, it's tough. I could literally just follow the pack and go LeBron. I mean, it would be the easy pick, but I do feel as though the LeBron fatigue has, even though he hasn't won a recent MVP, his continued trips to the NBA Finals to some extent have still maintained LeBron fatigue. So I don't think the narrative will... Actually, you know what? Because he's playing on the Laker uniform, he will still dominate the narratives of everything. Because that's the thing. The NBA season has started, and everybody's excited, but I feel like everybody's waiting till Saturday night to watch him debut at Staples Center. I mean, his first game is going to be Thursday. Like, his first regular season game is going to be Thursday in Portland. But everybody's going to be glued to their televisions watching him debut on Saturday night in Staples against the Rockets. Everybody's waiting for that. And I feel as though because he has that groundswell behind him, LeBron could make some noise for the MVP award. But I genuinely believe that if Anthony Davis can stay healthy, I mean, I've seen when Anthony Davis is healthy and he's able to play most of the season, that he's able to do amazing things, and he can definitely pull out some wins for that Pelicans team. And they did take some blows in terms of roster-wise, and it's just so tough, because then you're looking at it and you're like, okay, so would Anthony Davis be the more likely choice? Would Kawhi Leonard, would Toronto be the choice? Because right now, Kawhi Leonard is the best player in the Eastern Conference. At full health, Kawhi Leonard is the best player in the East. I don't want to hear no Kyrie. I don't want to hear any Ben Simmons. I don't want to hear... No. Kawhi is the best player in the Eastern Conference right now when he's fully healthy. And he's on what could be the best team in the Eastern Conference, in the Toronto Raptors. Everybody's getting so caught up in the Celtics because they're the new shiny toy. Last year, they got to the Eastern Conference Finals, took the Cavs 7 games without Kyrie and Gordon Hayward. Now that you get those guys back, everybody's just like, man, imagine how much better they can be now. And we're kind of overlooking what Toronto was. Toronto was the best team in the East last year in terms of wins in the regular season. Now you're telling me they've upgraded and they went out and got Kawhi Leonard. that's an entirely different team. I mean, they won 59 games last year. Go and get Kawhi Leonard. We'll see how this team plays out. Kawhi Leonard could be an MVP candidate, but Kawhi doesn't have the narratives in his favor as much as a guy like LeBron does, as a guy like Giannis does. Like the fact that people were talking about Giannis working out with Kobe in the offseason and all this stuff. And those things all play a role. Just how often you are talked about during the offseason and how much people look forward to seeing you on the court and realizing the impact that you have playing on the court. That all plays a role in how we give out these awards. So if I had to do it, man, this is tough. This is so tough. If I had to give my MVP award, I would vote Anthony Davis. I think Anthony Davis is going to definitely put on a show. I mean, the Pelicans finished 6th last year, and that was in the midst of DeMarcus Cousins getting hurt. Anthony Davis didn't play every single game last season. He played in 75 games, but he didn't play in all 82. And there was a lot of moving parts, and trust me, guys, I know they lost Rondo, they lost Boogie, but they did get some guys, like they got Julius Randle and so on. So we're gonna see how the different pieces and stuff move with this team. I'm definitely excited to see how the Pelicans do end up performing this season, and how Anthony Davis, I mean, he's back to essentially having to be like the Anthony Davis that he was when Boogie first got hurt, having to just go out and ball, man. Go out and having to show what you can do. And him and Jrue Holiday, I mean, they're a nasty tandem, honestly, down there in New Orleans. And I think the addition of Julius Randle definitely is going to give them some help in terms of performance. Now, if we're talking, and here we go, even with the other awards. So MVP, I got slated to Anthony Davis, so we'll mark that down. I have him slated for the MVP. I think he will lead the Pelicans to a top 4 seed. If he gets a top 4 seed, I think he'll win the MVP. Now, that's mainly with this caveat, he will win the MVP if LeBron does not finish a seed ahead of him, and if Giannis Antetokounmpo doesn't have a better record than him in the Eastern Conference with better seeding. I think then Anthony Davis will for sure win the MVP, and because I think he's also making a push for Defensive Player of the Year since he's lost out to Rudy Gobert last year, Draymond Green the year before, and so on. So I definitely think he's making a push on both sides, and I think with him always trying to perform at such a high level on the defensive end, his defense is going to get recognized in terms of how he plays as a two-way guy, and he always puts up the stats in terms of like if you need like a 30 and 20 or whatever game from him, he puts those games up. So I think that Anthony Davis is definitely that guy for me personally that will be the front runner to win the MVP. He just has to be healthy. That's why I need him. That he needs to be healthy. Now, in terms of other awards, the other awards even are narrative driven, because if we looked at most improved player, now look, easily most improved player, I've seen one game from these guys, and I can already see the improvement in Jason Tatum, and I can already see how much better he has gotten in that one game. And you could easily slate Jason Tatum as the best, most improved. Granted, it is an 82-game season. We got to see how guys hold up throughout the season. But I think that Jason Tatum, from where he was last season and then how he projected up, I think he could easily be the most improved. Especially, this is the problem with this is the difficult part with most improved player, because most improved player, it's a tough to gauge who's most improved, because for Ben Simmons, it's tougher for him to prove he's more improved than a guy like Donovan Mitchell or Jason Tatum. And the reason why I say that is because their roles are different. Because Ben Simmons was the starter last year, and he put up starter-like numbers. And for you to be more improved and everything like that, for you to get that kind of nod, you have to essentially eclipse your numbers from the year beforehand, and it normally has to be a sizable jump. It can't be like you're averaging 2 more points above from where you were last year or something like that. Like, it has to normally be a sizable jump. Like, let's think about it. Ben Simmons last year, he averaged 15.8 points, 8 assists, 8 rebounds, and he shot 54.5% from the field. So now this season, you would most likely like to see him jump to 20 points per game and have him stay in that 8 assists, 8 rebounds, or 10 rebounds, and maybe even increase his field goal percentage or increase his 3-point percentage, actually be able to hit threes, increase his free throw percentage, something like that. Because now what the problem is for Ben Simmons is that he has such a good rookie year that the in terms of what's going to be asked of him to perform, like kind of like what's asked of LeBron and these other guys. Like for LeBron to win an MVP now, he has to do so much more than the next guy because we're already used to that standard from him. We've seen that standard from him. We expect it from him now. So now when Ben Simmons has hit that goal already, we're expecting Ben Simmons, okay, do it again, but be better, be more efficient, be more productive, make your team better, make them win more, something along those lines. So it makes it more difficult for you to win or to be the leading candidate for an award like most improved player when you have to make that jump in production. Now a guy like Donovan Mitchell, me personally, I think Donovan Mitchell will be the most improved player because Donovan Mitchell, rookie year, he did average 20.5 points per game. He averaged 3.7 assists, 3.7 rebounds. He shot 43.7% from the floor and 34% from three. And it's one of those things where obviously you think Donovan Mitchell is going to improve. He's going to definitely get his field goal percentage up. And with his field goal percentage going up, he's the focal point of the offense. So you know his shots are going to go up as well as his points per game. And as he studied the game and learned the game more, you know he's going to know how to become a better playmaker after his first season. He's going to know how to become a better rebound, everything like that. His body's going to get more developed, the whole nine. So Donovan Mitchell, even though he did average a good amount of points per game, he's going to get more efficient. And when he becomes more efficient, he could easily jump to 24, 25 points per game with him being Utah's focal point on offense. So it's all about the roles that you have too. Now, a guy like Jason Tatum could easily be the best player or the top behind Ben Simmons, the second best player out of this rookie group, and be the guy that should be deserving of the award, whose game has improved the most. But the problem with Jason Tatum is it's all about your opportunities, because now with Jason Tatum, he's in a situation where his team is so deep that he's not going to have as many opportunities to showcase what he can do. Last season, Jason Tatum, 13.9 points per game, 1.6 assists, 5 rebounds, shot 47.5% from the floor and 43.4% from three. Now that's great. Those are great numbers. Don't get me wrong. Those are great numbers, especially in your rookie season. And when you're essentially providing in that rookie role, that's a great production. Now you're going to come slating off from the bench now because Gordon Hayward's back and you have a full rotation. So with a full rotation now, you kind of wonder, okay, how's Jason Tatum going to get acclimated? How are they going to make things work between him and Gordon? How many opportunities is he going to get? Is he going to get the opportunity to go and make his points jump from 13.9 to 20 points per game to 23? How is he going to get those opportunities? There's only one basketball on the court, so it does make it tougher for him to show how much he's improved versus the next guy, where Ben Simmons, Donovan Mitchell, those guys have more opportunities to do that because they're playing so much more. So I definitely think that my guy that I think will have the lead to be the most improved player is Donovan Mitchell. Now, I think don't sleep on a guy like Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram could definitely be that guy in Los Angeles playing next to LeBron. Maybe Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball was so bad that he has so much room to get better from. But I think that the specter of LeBron might mask the improvement of those two guys, whereas the other guys are the focal points to some degree of their teams besides Jason Tatum. The other guys are focal points. Like Ben Simmons is the focal. He runs the offense. He's the point guard. Donovan Mitchell, he's the main scorer on the Jazz. For the Lakers, the focal point is LeBron James. It's going to be LeBron James. While Brandon Ingram might be his number 2. Lonzo Ball might be the starting point. Who knows? But the focal point is LeBron James. So the main production is going to come from him, and everybody else kind of feeds from under him. And it kind of becomes a thing with them too. How much of the basketball is there to go around? So when you see something like that, you just kind of got to see how your projections go out. Mine, I got Donovan Mitchell, Coach of the Year. It's tough because I feel as though Brad Stevens might coach the Celtics to a number 1 record, especially if he has everybody healthy. But I think Brad Stevens is at a point now where we know how good of a coach he is, and we've seen what he's done with lesser players and everything like that. So now the expectation is more for Brad Stevens. Kind of the same thing with all the players. The expectation grows for Brad Stevens, so it's tougher for us to go ahead and give him an accolade and make him our Coach of the Year and stuff like that when we have already seen so much of him and we expect so much now from him. And so Brad Stevens is a guy, especially after you saw what happened with the coaches last year, with the coaches faking on him in terms of even giving him a vote for coach of the year. I think this year, if anything, I think Brad Stevens definitely has a case to be made that he deserves to be the coach of the year. Now, somebody that could be a sleeper to come back up from nowhere and be the coach of the year could be Quinn Snyder, depending on the Utah Jazz finish. I think they could be a team that could finish in the top 4 in the West, especially since they're coming back. The way their style is very regular season style. They're gritty. They'll pull out a lot of games because they're defensive minded. They're gritty. They know how to lock up teams, and they play the right way on offense. So they're very often a regular season oriented team, and they'll win a lot of games with the way they play. Their play style is in the regular season, and they can win games in the postseason too. I mean, if Ricky Rubio doesn't get hurt in the playoffs against the Rockets, yeah, I still think the Rockets win, but I think that series would definitely go 6 or 7 games if Ricky Rubio doesn't get hurt. And this is with a rookie, Donovan Mitchell. Now imagine the next season after they have a year to improve and everybody is improving their games and everything like that. That's scary. And now they added Grayson Allen too through the draft. So when I'm sitting here looking at Coach of the Year, I think that you definitely can make a case that Quinn Snyder and Brad Stevens, obviously those guys have a chance. Luke Walton might have a chance depending on where the Lakers finish. If they have such a jump from wins from the last year to this upcoming season, if they go from 35 to like 50 or so more so wins, that could be a big jump for them. So I think the Coach of the Year, if I had to choose, I think most deserving would be Brad Stevens, especially if he leads them to the Eastern Conference title, or especially having the best record in the Eastern Conference. But I don't know. I don't know if he'll get it. But I think I would probably say my vote. I think he deserves it. So I'll vote Brad Stevens. I think he definitely does deserve it. And then Defensive Player of the Year. This is a tough one. I think Anthony Davis will win Defensive Player of the Year. Because if I'm picking him as my MVP, I think he has to have a Defensive Player of the Year kind of year in order to win the MVP. So I'll pick him as my Defensive Player of the Year. A guy like Joel Embiid, another guy, Rudy Gobert can't be slept on even though he just won it. You can't sleep on those guys. But I think Anthony Davis is definitely going to have his motor going and try to make a case as to why he should win it with his rim protection and guarding guys on the wings and protecting the paint and everything. I think Anthony Davis will definitely make his case for that award. And I definitely am excited that the NBA season is back, y'all. And if there's any other things you guys want me to touch on in terms of over-unders and stuff, let me know. Give me any questions, any other awards you want me to do, Rookie of the Year and so on. I guess I'll just do Rookie of the Year now. My Rookie of the Year, I probably would say is going to be Luka Doncic, because I think he's most poised to accrue the stats, to have an impact on the team he's going to, and I think he has the best body to perform. DeAndre Ayton could make a case for it too, but I think Luka Doncic will be more ready to get the all-around stats, and everybody's all about the all-around stats nowadays. So I think if he's in the best position to get those all-around stats in Dallas, where he's the focal point next to Dennis Smith Jr. So we'll definitely see how that works out. But all right, y'all, this has been the KBR Sports Podcast, the best sports podcast of your 24-hour day. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Remember, you all can follow and subscribe to the KBR Sports Podcast on Rabble TV, Spreaker, YouTube, iTunes, and SoundCloud. Also, don't forget that you can check out my content on brendanabin.com, which has episodes of my podcast, the blog, and other items on there. So go check out my website. And also, don't forget that you can check out my Twitter page at Abin Brendan, which is spelled ABBANBRENDAN, and also the KBR Sports Twitter page, which is at KBR_sports, where I'm tweeting all about my own stuff that's going on, different things I see in sports, and so on. And also, guys, please make sure, this is the most important thing, make sure you guys go and comment, like, and share the KBR Sports Podcast. So I always appreciate the support you guys give to the podcast, those who do tune in, and all your support definitely helps out the podcast, and I always genuinely appreciate it. And I always like to incorporate your support into different episodes that I'm doing of the podcast, and that episodes coming up of the podcast. I like to have your feedback incorporated into the show. So make sure you guys are commenting and liking and sharing the KBR Sports Podcast. And until next time, guys, I'm out.